just and true. With lofty heights attempt to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Thank you very much. We have our seat this morning. Once again, I want to say thank you to everyone who is present online and our colleagues who are present virtually. I want to say you're welcome to today's launch of the SOP for Integrated Service Provision for Persons Living with Disabilities. Okay, so very quickly, we will just go into our formal introduction. I'm not going to ask everyone to introduce themselves, but I practically know everyone here, and there's so many people online as well who is joining us today. Okay, so before I go in, I want to say that I appreciate the big persons from LASODA. Please let's put our hands together for them. They made this possible. And also those from CCD. Please let's put our hands together for them. And every one of you here, I mean, we all have very tight schedules, but here we are today, you know, because where's the online? You just started. Okay, so thank you very, very much. Okay, so my name is Pamela, and I'm sure everyone, a lot, if not all, they know me. And I work for the Center for Women's Health and Information, CEWHIN. I'm very sure one of the persons here, we've had collaborations. We have people from the ministry who are here who we've had collaborations with in terms of implementing some of our activities. Yes, and the Center for Women's Health and Information is a non-governmental NGO. An NGO, we are all about social well-being of the women, of girls. You know, sometimes I hear questions of people say women, girls, it's just women, girls. Well, of course, boys are also inclusive. But I also want to believe that I'm talking to experts here who know what's obtainable, who know what's currently going on in the society when it comes to violence against women and girls. So we, at the center, we work with statistics, and as the statistics have shown, women and girls are the ones who are more of the victims, yes, in the society. So our vision in CEWHIN is to ensure to empower young women and girls to realize their mental and physical well-being. It's very, very important. So that's it about CEWHIN, and because we're collaborating with LASODA and CCD, I will just call Mr. Jeshino, who is representing the MD of LASODA, to give a welcome address. Let's put this together for Mr. Jeshino.
Good morning, everyone. For the point of correction, I'm not representing the MD, I mean GM of LASODA. My organ is representing him. So thank you very much. Yes, Mrs. Abokai. So I'm only going to talk about LASODA. So I only want to talk about LASODA, and I don't want to jump the protocol because I have my organs whose shoes I'm not wanting to enter. So I am recognizing Mrs. Jayola, the Director for Social Welfare Department in the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Social Development. And also I'm recognizing my Oga, my madam in the office, Mrs. Abokai, Eniola Olanike, and also my able Oga, Mr. Ogutoyi Akintubi. I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to introduce LASODA to the stakeholders Lasoda is, please clap for my organs. Thank you, the stakeholders here. I really appreciate your coming, and I want to tell you about Lasoda. Lasoda, the full meaning of Lasoda is Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs. Lasoda was established by the Special People's Law of 2011. And as you can see from the name, Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs, we are for the affairs of the people living with disability in Lagos State. And we thank God because our mandate is to ensure that we implement Special People's Law. And in a nutshell, we are for the well-being of the people living with disability in Lagos State. Having said that, Lasoda has actually been working, seriously to see to the welfare of the people living with disability in Lagos State. And with the people living with disability in Lagos State, they have rights that we need to defend, to protect, and to guide and lead them through. And that's the reason why we cannot work without the Special People's Law, and it has been really helping us. Having said that, I thank God for the non-governmental organizations that are working, because government cannot do it all. We work with, private sectors, corporate organizations, non-governmental organizations. So I thank God for Center for Women, Health and Information, and also CCT. CCT is Center for Citizens with Disability, and other non-governmental organizations who have been working, seriously for the well-being of the people living with disability. Because there are some activities that they carry out which they have been collaborating with Lasoda, and it has been for the well-being of the people living with disability. So children with disability, we need to, as stakeholders, all of us, we have to do it together. Children with disability, they are less privileged people. They do not have voice of their own. So we are to be their voice. They face so many challenges: neglect, exploitation, violence, and others like that. So we are to create the awareness, and we are to deal with people who abuse these people living with disability, and even children with disability. So we have to work together to make sure that we work to help to defend people living with disability in Lagos State. So I wish you fruitful deliberation as you are going to do the launching of the SOP. Actually, I'm thanking you again, the stakeholders, because we came here severally, we draft, and then we review, and then before we can come together today for the launching. So I really appreciate you. Thank you very much, and I love you with you all.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Additional. That was really very explicit. Okay, so Okay, so very quickly, I'll just talk a bit about Project Strength project. The Spotlight Initiative is a global multi-year partnership between the EU and the United Nations to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls. Now, Project Strength is a UNDP-funded project within the Spotlight Initiative, through which CEWHIN seeks to contribute to the elimination of violence against women and girls. And one of the strategies of this project is capacity building for effective engagement of key groups to get involved in the fight against women and girls. And every one of us seated here today, we are all key stakeholders in our different fields. We have participants like women from the National Human Rights Commission, we have those from the ministry, we have a lot of CSOs that are present here, and also the religious groups, we have them present here. Every one of us are key stakeholders in the fight against violence against women and girls. Now, any violence against women and girls requires the involvement of everyone at all levels in society. It's really very important. It's not a fight for one person. It's not something that, one person has to run with, and that is why every time we do project, every time we try to implement our activities, we say it is it's important that, we collaborate. It's important that we network, because it's not something we can do by ourselves. We may have a situation, something probably is happening in Gurudu, and then, you would also, you're not there, but then you want to probably reach out to someone who's close to you. So as a result of coming together and collaborating, it helps us to network. It helps us with the synergy. That is all we're all about. Now, in particular, especially in the context of preventing and ending violence against women and girls, there are especially strategic groups that should be considered, including men and boys, adolescent boys and girls, as well as faith-based, cultural, and traditional leaders. Faith-based leaders are one of the strategic stakeholders in the prevention of sexual and gender-based violence. Leave no one behind. It is very important that no one is left behind in the fight against violence against women and girls. And sometimes people would think that, the person living with disabilities, do they really encounter these things? Like, do they get maybe sexually abused? Do they get violated? They do. They do. A higher percentage of them. They really do. And so it is very important they're included in everything that we do. And that is the reason why we're here today. We're looking forward to having a state, a legal state where, people would have, by the time we finish launching this program today, launching this, the book today, the SOP, we're hoping that, going forward, people will use it to be something that, legal state, you want to probably attend to a case of the you go through it, and then you look at it, and then you find referral points on how to help these persons. They're human beings. What do we do? Equality. We're preaching it. So it has to also start from us. First things first, these persons are human beings, right? They're human beings as well. So in whatever we're doing, they have to be included in everything. Men and boys are also inclusive. When I started initially, I said it. It's not just about girls and boys. We all know what is currently happening, even to our boys these days. A lot of young boys are being sodomized. Things are happening to them. So now it's not just girls and boys, And whenever sometimes we're having training, I tell them that, look, you may not even have experienced it. You may not have experienced any sexual gender-based violence. Maybe your sister hasn't, or maybe someone you know. But there's always someone that knows someone somewhere that has gone through that trauma, that has gone through that pain, that has been violated. Even in your different houses, you may feel, okay, well, I don't have daughters, so I'm sure I'm free, I'm safe. What about the neighbor who has 5 girls in their compound? What about that neighbor that have young boys in the compound? There are perpetrators everywhere, I'm sure we know that. And we know that, like I said, I'm speaking with experts, yeah? So we know that people who actually do these things are not strangers. They are not strangers. They're not far from us. So again, it is a fight for all. It is something we all need to put our heads together and run with. We look forward to having a society where we say, at last, there is zero tolerance to sexual gender-based violence, violence against women and girls, and GBV, harmful practices. Things are happening. You know, in the days back, it's not like these things just started. It didn't just start. Even in the time of old, there was violence. But apparently people were not talking. We didn't have NGOs, we didn't have CSOs who would say, okay, you know what, I want to advocate. We didn't have people coming forward to advocate, like I'm an advocate for change. No, people kept quiet. But was there violence? There was. Were women being raped? Of course. Were young girls being trafficked for prostitution? They were. And so that is why the Spotlight Initiative is very, very important. Then people were in the dark. If they put up the lights in this room now, I'm sure everywhere will be dark, right? But when you put, even if it's a lamp, there is a difference. And so that's why the Spotlight is saying, no, we're going to put that, we're going to put a spotlight to this violence called, this menace that is called violence against women and girls. We need to put the torchlight, let people see, let it be exposed. Let's bring out the perpetrators. Let's persecute them, bring them, let justice take this full focus. So that is what we are all about. And I'm happy again that every one of us is here. And we're hoping that at the end of this training, at the end of this launch, going forward, we'll start having less reports of issues around they just raped a child, a father just defiled a 2-month-old baby, those kind of things. We hope everything goes well. Okay, so very quickly, the CCD representative is not here at the moment, but I would be invited for the opening address. Let's put this together as a big welcome, Mr. Sumbo Oladipo. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. And okay. Am I good? All right, thank you. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Very good morning to you all. I would first of all like to appreciate the effort that you are all putting into coming into the 30th of August occasion, but this is February, so to this February occasion. So my name is Sumo Oladipo, and I work with the Center for Women's Health and Information. And let me start again by welcoming the big men and women that are here, from the various agencies, departments of government, and also, from when all of you are agencies of government, majorly, and then of course from the NGOs. So I'd like to welcome, the GM of Soda. Thank you very much for coming. Representatives of all the other agencies, the CCD, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Women Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Social Development, representatives of CSOs, and also the UNDP, who are the sponsors and supporters of this initiative. Even though they are not here, but somehow I'm sure that this will get to. So let me mention, when you were speaking, ma'am, you mentioned Mrs. Jayola of the Ministry of Social. May I recognize her? I don't know how to. Okay, good morning, ma'am. Please sit down. I wanted to know you specifically because I've heard so much about you. We would have a personal tete-a-tete when we are done now, because I have a friend who works very closely with you, and I've heard that name now for God knows how many years. So it's a pleasure to meet you in person, as well as every other one who is here. So the Center for Women's Health and Information has worked at least in the past 1 year with the Spotlight Initiative on this very, very important project, which is seen to the elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls, as well as, giving a zero tolerance to sexual and gender-based violence. Of course, the center has over the years done a whole lot of work, as relates to women, different kinds of projects. And so we would not say that we were really rookies when we came in onto this specific project. However, we came in just focusing, specifically on women and girls. And I think it was towards the end of the first, what's the word now? Sometimes I use my vocabulary. Thank you very much. Towards the end of the first phase, that the plight, or the necessity for giving attention to PWDs, came upon us, from our different learnings from implementing the project. And so we began to have a series of engagements with PWDs. We had in Lagos, in this very hall, and then on the mainland, and then we had in Ikorodu. And I must confess that that brought me to a lot of knowledge in understanding of some of the peculiarities that are associated with this particular group. And I think it became much more personal for me, because at some point in time, I broke my leg and I was on crutches for 6 months. And I can tell you firsthand, I understood what it meant. And that was just a little bit of an idea of what they face, because this is something that they live with for the rest of their lives. And I just had 6 months of crutches. And in the midst of those 6 months, I had a lot of projects that I had to work on in Abuja. And so my first experience was from flying to Abuja, because I broke my leg exactly a week before I was to go to Abuja, and I had a whole load of jobs lined up, and there was no way I was going to say I'm not doing it. And so the first challenge I had was getting on the plane. And even though I got to the airport and I was put on the wheelchair, I had a cast on my leg, and I didn't even have the 2 crutches, the regular crutches. I had that walking stick, which was, it was tough. And then I needed to get on the aircraft, and that was the dilemma. There was no, technological means by which I could get onto the plane. And so they put me on that wheelchair, and I had 4 gentlemen, staff of the airline, literally carry me with the wheelchair onto the plane. And each time they took a step, I go, Jesus. And each time they took it, because the fear in me was so much. And then I began to understand. And of course, that was just the first point of it. The next thing that happened to me was that, and I'm taking time to share this so that we could have an idea of the issues that I had. And then I got there, I launched into this hotel. The hotel was nice. It was, the bathroom was quite big, and it was a shower. So, I didn't have any problems there. I had a chair, 2 chairs, so I would sit on one, put my leg on the other, and I was good. And then came going to visit the MDAs that I had conducted interviews with. And it was a USAID job, which meant that I had to go to the US Embassy every day. Now, to get to Nigerian agencies, there was a day I needed to go to, I think it was the Ministry of Health in Abuja. It was on the 11th floor. Oh God, oh my God. That day, I don't, I can't even describe it. And then I finished one project, and I needed to do yet another one with another organization, and I was launched in another hotel in Abuja. Now I got into this hotel, and the bathroom had a bathtub. And this time around, there was a problem, so I spoke to them, and they said, the only room that they had that could offer me what I needed, was a shower that didn't, without a bathtub, was a presidential suite. And it was 150,000 naira per night. I didn't have that kind of money. The people who gave me the job didn't have that kind of money. And even if they did, they were not going to spend it. So they said, they had to put me in the regular room, no problem. And I was going to have my bath the following day. I entered into the bathtub and I was alone, so the doors were locked. And I said, okay, give me a chair. They gave me a chair. It was a plastic chair, but with a bit of iron metal. As soon as I sat on it in the bath, it punctured the bathtub. I went in, and then I felt like, this is it. Who was I going to call? I couldn't reach the phone. I couldn't get to even open the door when I was able to get somebody. What was I going to do? I mean, I don't want to share the experience with you. You know, but the last thing that I would say, because so I had all of those experiences, it was terrible. But here was the US Embassy. The first day I got to the embassy, you know, we phoned them and said they wouldn't allow us to get the front of the place. And then so we put a call through to the embassy and they said, okay, so they gave this respite for the come to the front of the embassy. What else? I still had that one walking stick. From the entrance to the place where I was going to climb, get into the lift, I stopped about 7 times. My hand was in pain, my legs I was almost weeping, but I had said to God, help me to manage my emotions, let me not cry throughout this event, I know myself. But do you know what happened? The very moment I got upstairs at the US Embassy and they saw my situation, they gave, instructions to one of the staff to get out. They immediately got out a wheelchair. I mean, when I'm talking of wheelchair, I'm talking of better wheelchair. You know, they brought it out and they put someone on standby. So that every day, I think I went to the embassy maybe about 5 days, or every day, because I needed to interview staff over there over the project. Immediately we get in front of the hotel and the embassy and we put a code over here. They would come down with the wheelchair, they would wheel me up, and when I'm going, they would do the same. So it was the most beautiful, the most comfortable part of my experience. Of course, I did all of that for about 5 weeks in Abuja. I came back to Lagos to do the Lagos end. I was still keeping my emotions in place. The last day of the job was at Ochokoro. They were doing the roads. I had already had a terrible time in the car, going to the place. When we come to the venue, I now found out that he was upstairs. I stood at the foot of the stairs and I began to pity myself. Okay, so I mustered up the last strength that I had and climbed. By this time, I had 2 crutches and I had been taught how to use them to climb the stairs. I got to the stairs and climbed it. I got up and I sat into a chair, put my head on the table, and I wept. All the emotions that had been hidden just kept bursting out. I wept like a baby. I couldn't do anything. My colleagues did not allow me to say, just don't, and so that was that experience that I had. So I can imagine people whose daily experience, whose daily reality is that. And so I went through that, sharing of that experience so that we can have an idea. If you have not been through something, you really do not know what it feels like. And so this becomes very, very important. So we brought in the PWDs into the project, began to have engagement with them and to receive from them firsthand what the challenges are. And of course, all of us here are key stakeholders. We know some of these challenges. We still live in a country that culture, religion still plays a very major role and a major part, and a number of times negatively. So there's stigmatization, they're already a vulnerable group. And so when you talk about gender-based violence, and you talk about violence against women and girls, and you're focusing on the female, you must understand that the peculiarity of the woman with disability is different because they become doubly vulnerable. And so that's why it became important for us to make this a very, very, important aspect of the project. And I must confess that, the UNDP has been good, and all our stakeholders here have done a great job with us. So maybe at this point we want to give ourselves, a good round of applause. Thank you very much. So when looking, we began to look not just at gender in terms of male, female, which is the most pronounced in Nigeria, but we began to look at social inclusion. In other words, where everyone, irrespective of their challenges, tribe, religion, and all of those indices that play a major role, in our lives, where everyone would have, the opportunity to life and all the things that you would normally want to attain in life, to be able to attain your goals, and so the key word here, the emphasis is on access to education, access to health, access to work, so that all the discriminations that we find, would be able to, if we can't eradicate them totally, at least we would have been able to do something. And so in the midst of all of this, we got to a point where we decided that the SOP would be very necessary. Necessary because it would be a guide for all stakeholders to use when you have to deal with PWD persons within this category. And it has to do with the need for policies. It has to do with the need to provide the necessary things that will make life easy and comfortable and convenient for these people. And so basically the SOP, amongst the goals or the objectives of the SOP, I'll just read out some, is to provide a guideline that will help improve the capacity of staff of organizations to identify and deal with cases of GBV or harmful practices perpetrated against PWDs. I think this will require a lot of policy making. Recently also I conducted an evaluation of a very big organization in Nigeria because they were trying to mainstream into the policies, and honestly you find out that we have not even begun as a nation. So those things are important. Now also to promote and foster collaboration, solidarity and understanding between organizations and actors within this sector. I mean, networking is very key. To create a unified intervention process and procedure and addressing cases of GBV or harmful practices perpetrated against PWD. Ensure that PWD survivors of GBV and all of those things receive inclusive response that is prompt, efficient, and comprehensive. The problem is that a lot of them suffer in silence, and there's so much abuse against PWDs. We women especially. In one of our engagements with them, we heard someone say something about a woman with disability being raped, and then you hear comments like, "They are not even happy that somebody raped you and made you pregnant. Otherwise, how would you become a mother?" Such snide remarks. So these things are important to develop processes and procedures that allow for monitoring and evaluation, which is also key, to harmonize response mechanism in Lagos State for PWD survivors of GBV and the like, and ensure that their needs are met. To ensure a certain level of uniformity in dealing with PWD survivors or victims of GBV harmful practices. And then to also ensure that all participants and organizations that provide services for PWD survivors of gender-based violence and harmful practices stick to minimum international ethical standards and guidelines. And so these are the major goals of the SOP, and I believe that all stakeholders will find it rather useful. And so in closing, I would like to acknowledge, the efforts of the people who have helped in putting the SOP together. So we have Professor CEWHIN from the Department of Social Work at the University of Lagos, which is here. And she's not here. I would like to thank her for her efforts. Also, is Dr. Folashade Adebite from the Department of Private and Property Law, also from the University of Lagos, here. Oh, thank you very much, madam. Thank you for your efforts. And also, Mrs. Grace Alexander, the leader of Star Children Initiative. Is she here too? She's virtual. Okay, so we acknowledge your presence virtually, and we thank you for your efforts. And so it gives me great pleasure to know that this work that took so much time and took so much effort has finally landed. Like they say, the vehicle has landed, and I'm glad to be a part of the launch today. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Simone. Okay, so very quickly again, we will be having a keynote address from the Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs. The MD is unavoidably absent, but it has a representative in person of Mrs. Olukomi Abokai. Please let's put it together for her.
Good morning, fellow participants. I bring the greetings from Lagos State government, especially from Lasoda and from the NG, Mr. Dayo. The issue of sexual-based, gender-based violence is not peculiar to Lagos alone. I'd like to say that even the so much, and on a couple of occasions, I've witnessed, observed, and some cases of violence against people with disabilities. Like the last speaker mentioned, that is double jeopardy. It's really a big problem for them. Because at times they cannot even say, they can't express their emotion, or they can't say what the perpetrator did to them. So you need to use a lot of effort for you to be able to assist them. So, once again, I want to say
thank you very much, Mrs. Olukomi. Right about now, we're having goodwill messages from different institutions, different stakeholders who are present here. First person I'll call in is Barrister Lucas Kwejo from the National Human Rights Commission. Please let's put it together.
I want to welcome everybody to this launch for a very important document. My name is Lucas Kwejo, and I'm the State Coordinator, National Human Rights Commission. First of all, I want to actually appreciate CEWHIN. We've been working, we've been partnering with them on this project for quite some time now, and they've been doing marvelously well. Please let us put our hands together. So I bring all of us greetings from the Executive Secretary, Mr. Tony Ojukwu, from headquarters in Abuja, and I want actually to say that National Human Rights Commission, we are one of our main team, our main focus is on SGB, and we actively, every year, we actively do everything possible to ensure that SGBB is given prominence in everything that we do. That is why we partner with major stakeholders like CEWHIN, others like DSVA, and others that are there. I cannot mention every one of them. And every year we have what we call the 16 days of activities that precedes International Human Rights Day. That is on the 16th of December. No, International Human Rights Day is 10th of December. So 16 days before it is the is the 16 days of activism against violence against women. That it is dedicated to that. So during those days, we do a lot of activities, visiting the stakeholders, even the judge, the chief judge, the State House of Assembly, the speaker, everybody that has something to do with making sure that this problem is solved. We know that we cannot completely eradicate such a thing because some of these things are entrenched in our culture. Some of them are cultural, especially talking about discrimination. We talk about discrimination against women. We know that it's cultural. And we are just trying to overcome some of them so people to know that this is not, that we are all equal. That we are all human beings. When we say human rights, it doesn't mean whether you are a man or a woman, a boy, a girl, whether you are white or black. Once you are born human, it is universal. So that is the point. Nobody is above the other. We are all born equal. And in that way, that is why we say GBV is a serious violation of human rights. And it has to be dealt with. And like we said, people with disability, they are subjected to what we call job jeopardy. Because due to the fact that they are disabled, that is a factor in itself. They face a lot of discrimination and limitations. Coupled with the fact that maybe they are now a woman, that one will be added to it. So women with disabilities actually need special protection. Their case needs to be specially looked into, and that is why we are very happy. It is our pleasure to be part of this SOP, this standard operating procedure, which is very important. We believe that every organization should have a copy. We should train our staff on the contents so that we can use it to defend, to protect, and promote the rights of women with disabilities and even gender-based violence generally. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Barrister Lucas. Okay, so representing the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Youth and Social Development, let's put hands together for Mrs. Jayola, Director of Social Welfare.
Good morning, everyone here present. Correct DSP protocol. My PS, due to a state of duty, is not present here, but I would love to be here. So, and I'm happy to be here for this launching this morning. So, I have the pleasure to be here. I'm Oluwatoyin Jayola, Director of Social Welfare. So I have pleasure to be here at the launching of this standard operating procedure for integrated violence against women and girls, sexual gender-based violence service provision for persons with disability at Lagos State. Let me state at the onset that Lagos State government has zero tolerance for discrimination against persons with disability and from at violence of whatever form against persons, including persons with disabilities. And that's why we have the special people's law in place to ensure that their rights, their fundamental rights are being protected and they live a fulfilled life, devoid of stigma and neglect. So it is indeed very important that appropriate mechanisms are put in place to ensure the success of fight against violence against persons, irrespective of social status or economic background. Therefore, the launching today of standard operating procedure is a step in the right direction. Basically, standard operating procedure describes the steps that one needs to follow while performing a specific task. It is a document that provides clear-cut directions and instructions as to how teams and members within an organization must go about completing certain processes. Standard operating procedures look more towards standardized ways to get the work done. This is in line with international best practices, and we give detailed process and what needed to be done to curb and prevent violence against women and girls, and help restore the dignity of persons with disability. It will equally enhance service delivery and efficiency in managing the issue of violence against women and girls. The Social Welfare Department will continue to work and collaborate with Lagos State Office of Disability Affairs to assist and provide services targeted at restoring the values and dignity of persons with disabilities. Let me commend the Lagos State Office of Disability for following tenaciously their mandate of ensuring overall well-being of persons with disabilities in Lagos State. Let me also appreciate the collaboration with the Center for Women's Health and Information for deeming it fit, and also the Center for Citizens with Disability and all NGO hearing present for deeming it fit to launch this standard operating procedure, looking at the positive effects which we have in addressing the issue of violence against women and other abuses against women, particularly those with disabilities. This commendable effort should be emulated by other well-meaning individuals and organizations, and offer necessary support to tackle the incidence of violence against women. Finally, I want to invite all participants at this gathering and other stakeholders to continue to work as a team in addressing the issue of violence against women in Lagos State and ensure the overall well-being of persons with disability in the state. This category of people should not be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jayola. And please send our videos to the permanent secretary. Okay, so representing TSOs, let's put it together as a legal call. Mrs. Bonke Oyelaki.
I'm standing on the existing protocol. I'm representing the CSO, and on behalf of the CSOs, I would like to say that this is a very big and giant slide for CEWHIN and collaboration with CTN and LASODA, ensuring that this project is brought out, and for us to know that on a daily basis we work with people with living with disability. We involve a lot of cases, we have a lot of cases of children living with disability, even women of sexual and gender-based violence. We come in contact with them, and it's so surprising that many of people that are supposed to even give support or give render services to them, if you don't have the information, they know how they can actually be of help to those people. So for me, it's a great project that someone has put together. Please, let's put our heads together for them in collaboration with LASODA and CCD. I really want to say this is a very beautiful one, and I hope this information in this booklet will go out for everyone that needs to read and understand how best that we can have an inclusion society working with people living with disability. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Roke. That's very thoughtful of you. Representing the CSOs. Okay, so very quickly, we will just have an overview of the standard operating procedures. And we have someone who will be taking us through the SOP. Let's put this together for Dr. Kolashade Adegiti. Let's clap.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, okay, so then. Okay, thank you for coming. It's so nice to have people from diverse background and diverse workplace, but just one focus and one interest to see that we minimize to the nearest minimum and to see that we eradicate LGBT among disabled persons, particularly women and children. Now, by my training, we know that if you do something wrong, at times there is a motive and there is an action. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a motive and there's the action. In criminal law, they would call it actors real and the mental element, yes. Now, at times we want to do something right. We want to do something worthy of emulation. But that is our motives. But we now do it wrongly. I think you understand. We do it wrongly, and at the end of it, the turnout will be wrong. And that is what necessitated this SOP. A lot of times we have a golden heart to assist, to help the disabled or people living with disabilities that have been traumatized or facing LGBT. But we may not do it with the wrong, we may do it, the procedure, the system may be wrong, or may not be very lawful. So there's a need for us to come together and see and ask, how do we do it right? How do we do it right? And that is what necessitated this SOP. Well, we know that a very large percentage of persons are living with disability. In Nigeria alone, we think it's about 29 million people living with disability. I will agree with that, but to the extent that when we refer to as disability, I think it's disability that we can even see physically. I can say it authoritatively that most of us are living with one form of disability or the other. If you're diabetic, if you're living with hypertension, if you have, I'm using classes, I am disabled. I can't see, I can't read without glasses. That means I'm living with one form of disability or the other. So we are all living with, it's even good for people that we can see physically, we can assist them. People with one kidney, people with failed kidney, people with one form of disability that is with one organ that we can't see. We are all living with one form of disability or the other. So I think it's something we should all put in our efforts to assist one another and to eradicate SGBV when it comes to persons living with disability. All right. Now, this the SOP, there are 10 chapters in the SOP. It's the first chapter. The first chapter starts, okay, apart from the abbreviation, you have all the abbreviations that we have there, the introduction. The first chapter starts with an introduction, giving us a background to why the SOP is needed. That's the first chapter. We have the objective, we have the purpose, we have the scope. We have some of the specific approaches to working with persons with disability, so that when we don't know, even when we have a good motive and we have a golden heart to help, we can find this information there and help appropriately and legally. The second chapter is defining the terms, defining what are specific terms, defining persons remain by disability, persons with disability. We're talking about types of disability, etc. Now, the third chapter, we talked about causes and consequences of gender-based violence against persons with disability. I will not emphasize this a lot because previous speakers have said so. Women living with disability, not even double, they suffer exclusion multiple times. The fact that they are women, naturally in our climate, women are excluded, women suffer distractions, they suffer trauma because they are women. Now, a woman with disability, it's a multiple disadvantage. So we talked about the causes and consequences of gender-based violence against persons with disability. That is the third chapter. The fourth chapter, we're talking about the principles guiding response. And this is very, very key.
talking about our intention, our good intentions. We must do it legally, lawfully, and ethically, morally right principles. We talked about respect. We talked about consent. We talked about non-disclosure. We talked about confidentiality. What are the best international practices that we must do? These are the guiding principles in assisting, in referring, in attending to persons with disability. So those things I've talked about, those guiding principles that should be our watchword in working with persons with disabilities. Now, chapter 5 speaks about guidelines for actions. What are guidelines? Guidelines, specific guidelines, if you're confronted with this kind of issues, what are the ways in which you should respond? What are the things you need to do? What is the first step? What is the second step? That is the guiding principle. Now, chapter 6, which is the next chapter, the 6th chapter, talks about the sexual and reproductive rights, health rights services for women and young persons with disabilities. What are their rights? What are the ways we need to attend to their rights? What are the procedures? When we're going to help them, how do we help them? What are the things we look at a lot of international best practices and questions that you should underline questions you should ask so that you know the appropriate form of response you should give or the service provider should give. Chapter 7 talks about roles and responses to PWD responses. We talked about health and medical response. We talked about psychosocial response. We talked about security and legal justice response. I am happy I can see people in uniform. Yeah, I believe we represent diverse service providers. We call ourselves service providers and actors in this area. So, what are the responses? Especially living with disability who have been traumatized or who is a survivor will come through to you for to make a disclosure or to somebody may identify there's an identification that a person living with disability as a survivor or a victim of LGBT. What way do we respond? What are the types of responses that we give to them? There's a medical and health and medical response. And if you go through it, it will tell you that this is perhaps the first and the most important, especially when it comes to sexual assault or rape. It's very important that this they access health response within the first few hours, so that number one, they can be treated and to prevent HIV, STI, and secondly, so that forensics can be preserved. Then we talked also on this chapter about psychosocial response, mental and psychosocial response. Some of the survivors may not even be physically assaulted, or even when they are physically assaulted, their emotional, their psychological, their spiritual welfare after the event may last a long time. And it depends on each person, each survivor, and the nature of the action or the severity of the trauma. So they need a psychosocial support. So there's a pyramid here that we discussed. It depends that there are 4 types of responses. Larger percentage of them may require just maybe some support. The next one, they will require more support than the first step. The third one will require more support than the first and second step. And the last one may even require specialized support, clinical psychologists and psychiatrists and whatever. So that is the next chapter. The next chapter talks, which is the 8th chapter, talks about reporting and referral pathway. Now, the beauty of working in this area is that we cannot provide all. I don't believe any actor here can provide all the services. My organization is providing legal response, counseling, defending in the courts and everything like that. I cannot provide psychosocial support. I cannot provide medical and health support. I cannot even case manage the project. So what do? I will report and I will refer. And that is why we all need to come into and act together, because it is a partnership and in collaboration that we can achieve the best results. I will collaborate with somebody who I know is providing a safe home, a shelter, hostel that the person living with disability needs immediately. He comes to my office, I close 6 o'clock, I work everything between work hours and between 8 and 6. And somebody comes in around 4, traumatized, having been raped, fine. You do probably the first response, the health care and the medical response. And the survivor is saying, I can't go back to that house. I am living alone with the person that assaulted me, that raped me. So what do? You refer. And reference here has to do with partnership. It's very important that we emphasize this, and I'm talking about reporting and referral pathway. We discussed that when it comes to survivors, there's what we call multiple points of entry. Hello? There's what we call multiple points of entry. When you talk of survival, there is no straight line to it. Like they will say in the Yoruba proverb that there are many roads leading into the market. Same thing. There are many roads leading to service provision when it comes to survival. The survivor may tell the next auntie living in his or her house that, see, auntie, that man just defiled me. The survivor may enter the police station and say that person just defiled me. You may be going on the road because you're wearing a uniform, comes to you and say that person, somebody just defiled. So there is actually no single point of entry. There are several points of entry. The person may go to the point of entry from health. They go to the hospital, they go straight to the Mirabel Center, they go to IKEA and start crying that somebody just defiled he or her. So there are multiple points of entry, but this is explaining to you whichever point of entry the survivor is coming from, how we can refer, where we can refer, and the processes that we can refer in order to achieve the best and optimal services and justice for the survivor. Now, chapter 9 is talking about caregivers abuse against persons with disabilities. This is one of the hardest parts of working or service provision for persons with disability, because we discovered that persons caring for them, caregivers are a lot of times they are culprits, and they are the assailants, they are the perpetrators. We see this, and so this is talking about what can be done and how to identify these, and when you are confronted with such scenarios. And the last chapter is talking about case management. Now, when we talk of case management, there are some people, some survivors, when they are confronted with this, when they are victims or they are confronted with the situation, merely giving them a little bit of attention, caring for them, they are okay. But there are some, depending on the severity of the issue, may last a long while. And there are some that the responses or the services that is needed goes beyond just the immediate need. You may need to empower more. You may need to give economic support. You may need to give education. You may need to train vocational training in order to give an adequate response. So that is case management. How you go about it and how is the system, the structure for case management is in the final chapter, which is chapter 10. Then after this, we have the appendices And it's so nice that there are prototypes of so many things that is already provided free here. The first appendix talked about the definition of terms. You need to understand that. We talked about then the next appendix, we talked about consent form, because we talked about guiding principles. Consent is one. The consent form, how you take consent, and so many complaints and intake and referral forms. There's quite a number of forms that you need, that the prototype is here. All you need to do is just to download it and have them as an actor or service provider within this within the referral pathway. And another thing, lastly, before I stop, why this is so nice. I mean, it's so nice that there are a list of ministries and government agencies involved with GBV. Their name, their location, and the contact address. You know, I talked about partnering and collaborations. Access, so we have this list, and it's so beautiful that you can just pick up the SOP and make a call, and things will be sorted out. And all other relevant agencies, all are provided for in this SOP. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to us a very formidable working tool, a technical document that will assist us in eradicating and minimizing sexual and gender-based violence against persons working. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Okay, so again, we're hearing from Mrs. Grace Alexander. She is part of the put together of the SOP. So please wait.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Virtual and then
Yeah.
Hi.
Good.
Can we hear?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Mrs. Grace Alexander. I'm the CEO of Start Children Development Initiative. I'm also the co-founder of Every Woman Matters. And we're disability advocates. And I want to appreciate the work Spotlight Initiative is doing. I want to appreciate CEWHIN as well, and LASODA, what they're doing in Lagos State. So they are actually the pace setter. Thank you so much. So I will go straight to the point. I'm asked to actually summarize chapter 1 to 6, to chapter 1 to 5. One thing why I'm going to start with people have mentioned disability. About what comes to mind to me is that disability is for me, and that is the definition given by WHO, that is World Health Organization. It's about that the lack of interaction between the impairment and the environmental factors.
Okay, so
Hello, are you hearing me?
Mrs. Alexander, please, can you hold on? Hello, can you hear us now?
Yeah, so I will first of all start with
Please hold on.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am. Okay, you can go ahead,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would say I'm asked to summarize chapter 1 to 5. And one thing, I mean, the other speaker has mentioned something on disability, and the other speakers have mentioned something on disability. But I would like to say that what comes to mind for me, apart from the fact that disability, it's about activity limitation, like somebody that has difficulty in seeing, hearing, walking, or problem solving, which are sometimes like people who are dyslexic. Sorry, people who are dyslexic. I would also like to mention about that disability is also about participation restriction. But what actually is disabling is the fact that there is no interaction between the impairment and their environment. That is what, according to WHO. And so we have different types of disability, which are sensory impairment, cognitive impairment, functioning, physical impairment, intellectual impairment, and some various types of chronic diseases. So that's why the SOP, it's very important, because it is not one cap fits all. And disability is an evolving concept. And then due to the fact that there are different types of disability, the one that can be seen and the one that are hidden. And most people that are hidden, they are called people that are neurodivergent. That means they are people, for example, people with autism. It doesn't matter whether you have high functioning, but the way you come across. Some disability exhibit themselves through behaviors. So, and that's why this standardization, that is the SOP, is really very important. Because, and why is it important? Why? Especially when we're dealing with women and girls who have faced gender-based abuse or harmful practices. Information and material related to the assessment are not available in the format. One thing is that communication is key in this aspect. How do you want to achieve effective engagement with the victims and victors of gender-based violence? You have to know the information must be in the format that will effectively engage them. So there are different ways of engaging them, which are itemized in the SOP. So that meets their ability. And one of the things allow that, and this is the lack of capacity. Some people don't understand the strategies of promoting inclusive practices, approaches for women and men living with disability. So that is make it difficult for proper successful intervention. So if you are engaging somebody with different types of disability, how will you engage me? The SOP is very detailed when it comes to that. And that is why it is necessary to have SOP for women and girls or boys that are faced abused due to their, and one thing is that abuse is not only sexual. We have 4 different types of abuse. One of them is physical abuse, beating, whatever. And then all the abuses create emotional impact, adverse effect on the victims or the survivors. So we have neglect, not giving the person food, deny the person the basic necessity of life. That could be also the system actually is guilty of that. The systems are not working. So neglect is another form of abuse, whether by omission or commission. And then and then lack of information of services. Some people don't know where to go. Even the people giving services, do they understand the strategies of achieving effective engagement? No. So that's why there has to be constant training on how to engage everybody, every person living with disability. Because you can see 2 people who are blind. It doesn't mean they have the same needs. And this SOP highlighted that. They don't have the same needs. So you have to do a disability audit to meet the needs of the needs and wishes, because you give them the power. It's about them, not about you that's providing intervention. It's about them. It's about making sure that there's proper engagement, which as highlighted in this SOP. So, and then there's some unconscious biases, like hidden habits of the mind. Are you looking at them from the tragedy point of view? Are you looking at them from the charity point of view? Are you looking? So you have to be self-aware. So your awareness, how do you see them? They are human beings, irrespective. So, and then what about this? I highlighted a lot of unreasonable adjustment. A reasonable adjustment is a change that must be made to remove or reduce a disadvantage related to a person living, related to somebody living with disability. So anything that would create a barrier for support. That's why disability audit is very important. What are the needs? What are the wishes? That must be had, and you have to treat them with dignity, according to CPR. That is the Convention of Rights for Persons with this Committee for Persons with. So the purpose of this SOP is aimed at achieving some goal of assisting to prevent, seek healing. Because one thing is that when you go through trauma, living with disability is very traumatic. Being a woman too, you are disadvantaged. Now, having no support and being abused is triple whammy. So how are we going to support the survivor to seek it, because they can relapse? Some of them depend on alcohol to cope. Some of them, they are withdrawn for life. So this SOP is about improving their life chances after those traumatic events, so that they don't get depressed, post-traumatic stress disorder. Trauma is something. So when they are doing psychosocial support for them, the person must be trauma informed. It's not about just counseling them. You can't give what you don't have. You need to be trauma informed. If you don't understand what trauma is, and you are not trauma trained to be trauma informed, you cannot, just because you're a psychiatrist, whatever, and then you think you have the resource to actually deal with, because it can relapse, and their life chances are doomed for life. So it's about getting back then into the system and be able to be whole. And that's why the standard of this SOP meets international standard of practice, which means you uphold and promoting human dignity and well-being, respecting the right to self-determination and autonomy. You give them the power. What do you want? How do you want me to support you? Now, how do you want me to help you? You don't, your language will incapacitate them as well. When you start telling them, how do you want me to help you? It's as if that language is taking the power away from them. So you tell them, how do you want me to support you? You can use anything. Then non-verbal cues, they are key. Sorry, my son. I have my son with me here. They have non-verbal key. Hold on, please. Non-verbal cues. Non-verbal cues, like body language, like facial expression, like a lot of things. Then drawing, you can use drawing just to engage them so that they can be, because you need to build trust. If you don't build trust, they will just be mute. You cannot. So, and then two, they have to, another one is promote their right to participation. That is for effective intervention, effective engagement. So that whatever information you have can be passed on to other key groups who are involved in the intervention of supporting women and girls or boys that are faced with gender-based violence or harmful practices. So, and this is in accordance with the Article 3 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and which shall be respect their inherent dignity. You have to adopt what I'll call anti-discriminatory approach. Anti-discriminatory, anti-oppressive approach. Don't be oppressive. Check your mind, your habits, the habits of the mind, unconscious biases. There are some biases people have and they don't know they have, but check it so that your response, your intervention can be holistic. Then equality of opportunity. tell them what is available, tell them what is not available. Then part of it is that then specific approach to working with person with disability, that is adopting the inclusive models of disability. What are they? They are all intertwined. Social model. You don't look at them from medical model. You don't look at them from medical model. Right-based model, respecting their rights. They have equal rights and opportunities to services and information. Then survivor-centered approach. That means the needs and wishes exclusive to them. Not because, like I mentioned the other time, not because one is blind and then you see another blind person and you think you can use the same model for the other person, that, you know what, no, it has to be what their needs and wishes are. That is very important. Person-centered approach. That person-centered approach means it has to be about the person, not other person. So it actually refers to when I mentioned maybe 2 deaf people. Some deaf people, some of them don't know sign language. Some of them can lip read. So you have to be non-judgmental, and you don't have to assume. Don't assume everybody is the same. Everybody has a right to be different. The way we communicate is different. The way we process information is different. The way we see things, they are different. So appreciate their difference. Appreciate their differences. So, and one of the things why this is very important is that, and then make sure that some people, they don't like fluorescent light. Some people, when they are, some people, they you know, this is what I say about hidden disability. They when they see light, that can trigger epilepsy. So that's why you have to do the audit and then make sure that information are accessible to them. And, you know, because they face a lot of stigmas, perception of about their capabilities. That's why you don't have to be judgmental. Then lots of community support. Don't give information to them in the format that they will understand. In the format that will understand. So all this, then there are so many factors that add to their vulnerability. And some of the isolation, lack of community support, lack of information, knowledge and skills, lack of sexual knowledge. That's why gender-based approach is very important. And that's why sexual reproductive rights information is very important, that you own your body and you have the power. Nobody violates your body without giving them that consent. So, and watch the like non-communication cues, which I mentioned, then lack of capacity building. So all the key groups, this SOP is very good, but it still need a lot of training on the part of the key groups that are dealing with people, women or girls or boys who are faced gender-based violence. So inclusive approaches, strategies, there are strategies to promote. So that's why when we're dealing with, when we're as a social worker or as anybody, your practice has to be inclusive. How are you being inclusive? You follow the ethics of your profession, which means you promote equality, you don't promote oppression, you are holistic in your approach, you are, you know, those guidelines, those ethics and values. And what are your values? What are your code of conduct? How are you reacting? Because if you don't react, you won't get information. There will not be any disclosure. If you are not telling the person, if you are not engaging in the professional way that meets the international best practices, there is no way you can meet those standards, or the person can be able to disclose with you. Then even when you're a child, when it comes to a child, and you don't know whether the person that is bringing the child is a perpetrator, watch the body languages, watch the child, watch the ways, and then make sure you are able to get, if there's some things they get, the child, it doesn't matter whether he has the power to say, this is the person that I want to support me in a way the child understands. So I would say this information is very, this SOP, standard of practice, kudos. It's very key in actually making sure that it's effective engagement. It's a working document, and it's also high. There's so many resources in that SOP that will challenge oppression, that will respect diversity, that will promote the rights of participation. You know, the right of participation, that will respect the right to self-autonomy and self-determination, and it promotes the human rights. So thank you very much for having me and it's something I'm passionate about. And well done. Looking forward to work with you in future. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Alexander. Thank you very, very much. That was really very insightful. Okay, so right about now, we would welcome Mrs. Florence Austin. She's representing the Executive Director of the Center for Citizens with Disabilities, CCD, in the person of Mr. Daire Oluwadamilare. Let's put hands together for Mrs. Florence. Give us her speech, and then we go into the adoption of the SOB. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Just handing the district protocol. I'm here representing the Executive Director of CCD, in the person of David Ayele. I must tell you that CCD is Center for Citizens with Disabilities. First of all, we want to commend the effort of CEWHIN in coming up with this report we are launching today. Also, I was also recognize the presence of the NASODA and the other MBAs present in this event. First of all, I want to give you a brief of CCD. CCD was founded as the founder's experience in the hands of veterans in the war, Northern Sierra Leone, where he was forcefully amputated, and that was what led to his physical disability. For 20 years now, CCD has been in existence, though formally an amputee rehabilitation center, and further we came up having the CCD. When we see the need to cut across every other forms of disability, and we want to promote the rights of persons living with disability, and also to ensure that all forms of discrimination and other harmful practices are being eliminated in the society among PWDs. CCD also led the leadership of the passage of Lagos State Special People's Law, and also championed the passage of National Disability Act, even to the establishment of National Commission. How do we do this work? Our work is more on projects, research, and documentation. We do advocacy and campaign. We do training and empowerment. We also provide legal aid support and dependent, and also work with state and non-state actors to policymakers as well to effect change among persons with disability. Also, we must also tell you that this report came at the right time due to the harvest of reports of gender-based violence that are popping up all over, everywhere in the society. But at the same time with this report, I must also tell us that this is just the starting point of the journey. Because we don't say because we have a report, thereby everything is settled. No, a lot of awareness needs to be done, and a lot of sensitization also needs to be done. Because when you talk about gender-based violence, you will see that when I was also going through the report, I saw the causes, and I saw that a lot of, when you talk about causes of gender-based violence, you can also trace it to weakness of the system in place. You can also trace it to perception among individuals. You can also trace it to lack of capacity building. A lot of others that been listed in the report. So that is why I said all of us need to put hands together. It's not just the work of CEWHIN. Yes, they came up with a report, but we also need to play our own role. CCD also will continue to work with the CSO, with the stakeholders, the MPAs also in promoting the rights of PWDs and ensure that all forms of discrimination and other harmful practices are being eliminated in the society. Also, we must tell you that we recognize your work so far and we continue to partner with you. I'm talking about the CSOs, I'm talking about the MDAs that are in the house and those that are not in the house. So we must all appreciate our efforts in this regard. Finally, I must also tell you that CCD, though we have a lot of funders, we are being funded by Hope Foundation or CEWHIN, just to name list among other donors that are funding our work. And then I must assure you that we'll also continue to play our role, to give out our support, to make sure that issue of gender-based violence in the society is being eliminated. And taking it down to girls and women with disability, just the few speakers that spoken that previously have also elaborated more around that. They suffered more. In short, they have more, I don't know how to put it, because people leverage on their disability. Now you are a woman, of which even some cultures don't even want to hear issues about women. Talk more of when you are a woman with disability. So it's a multiple disability altogether. And because of that, the perpetrators themselves leverage on these weaknesses to have an advantage of persons with disability, mostly the women and the girls. It's on this note I must thank you once again, and I must also say that this is the time for the adoption or the launch. So moving forward, I want to welcome the presence of Center for Women, Health and Information, represented by Mrs. Oladipo. Please, can you come forward? With a round of applause, please, let's bring her to the table. Mrs. Oladipo. And also, let me also welcome the president of LASODA, and then I call on Mrs. Olukani from LASODA to also join us. And a round of applause for her. So it's time for the adoption. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the adoption, the launch of the report. So we're going to do it together. Thank you so much. It's a round of applause. Can we conclude?
Can we have CSO representatives join them? Mr. Lucas, any chance please join them? Please join them, please. Minister of Education. Yes. Just take off. Mr. Deniji, please. Sorry. Minister of Education. Yes, I'm here. Mr. Lee.
Sorry.
Yes. So I feel it's too much.
Okay.
Just in here.
Sorry, yeah, this guy. Diola? Okay, so the next participant. Thank you. Thank you. So you can give us we'll give copies to everyone, yes. No, give to the next participant. Give to the copies. Yes.
Angela, can you see everybody? Oh.
Very good. Very good. Very good. What do you want? Thank you very much. Thank you.
It was amazing. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, Thompson Abigail, please join me. Yes, we are. Please join.
With them,
Okay, I was it.
The next I felt the rescue. So stupid camera.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
That's why I'm like this.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everyone. Please, can we just have our seat for a minute? We are almost, if I were done, it's not almost done. On behalf want to say a very big thank you to everyone. Thank you to the Ministry of Local Government Affairs, the President, Lagos State Psychosocial Response, the National Human Rights Commission, Community Women's Rights Foundation. Thank you for coming. NSCDC, APCON,